By the time the show is finished, there will be 59
Good?
to
Hello.
56.
I'm not reading anything, but this is, oh, there you are. Hi. Thanks, everybody, for coming out on a chilly Super Bowl Sunday.
Super Bowl.
Yeah. Go, everybody. The Rangers. It's True Story. And our theme tonight is Wonders Never Cease. I love this theme. Hi, this is Troy.
Hi, Troy.
Troy is our producing director and champion of True Story and everything ESTLA related, along with Christopher Reiling in the booth, who you'll hear later. That's my team, and we win. And is there anybody who hasn't been to True Story yet? No.
Okay.
So I won't explain what it is, except it's storytelling. It's based on a true story. And as always, when somebody uses the phrase true story, you know that they're both about to tell the truth and embellish upon it. And that is something wonderful to behold. So without any further ado, wonders never cease. Honest to God, here is Hutch Foster to prove it.
Got a bright light today. I can't see a face. When I was 3.5, my family moved from a cozy single-story 2-bedroom bungalow on Summit Drive to a treacherous 2-story 5-bedroom Leviathan on San Raimundo Road. The driveway was treacherously steep. There was something in the base of it that was wrapped in a thick, gauzy material and emitted heat I was pretty sure was a mummy. But the thing that challenged my 3-year-old perception most was the 12-foot prickly sticker hedge that grew in a huge circular clump right smack in front of our house. On the 4th day after moving in, I gathered all my courage and by myself opened the front door. The thorny bramble loomed ominously, daring me to approach. Not only was each barb a possible threat of an owie, but the closer I got, the more the canker blossom blocked out the sun. In fact, it seemed to swallow light entirely. Keeping my distance, I circled its perimeter counterclockwise, making my way past the garage when I heard a voice. Hey! It was a kid's voice, which surprised me. It came from the ivy-covered fence that clearly delineated the property line. Over here! I cautiously moved closer to the fence until I saw part of a child's face through a gap in the wooden slats. Open the gate! There was a gate? Mom didn't say anything about a gate. Just lift the latch and it will swing open. It seemed foolhardy to trust the words of some kid I'd never met. I'm not sure that I should, I hedged. You're not going to get into any trouble, the kid insisted. Just lift the latch. As I got closer, I could see the latch through a tangle of ivy. It seemed to make sense that if someone took the trouble to install a latch, it might be okay to go ahead and lift it. I reached out and gave it a try. It wouldn't budge. You have to use all your muscles. Sometimes it gets stuck. This kid sure knew a lot about the latch on my side of the fence. I moved aside a couple of strands of ivy and with all my might pushed up. With a resounding clank, the latch lifted and almost immediately a gate in the fence swung open. And there stood a stocky auburn-haired boy. With an enormous sense of pride, he announced, "I'm Bobby Lionberger." I had every contingency covered. Light jackets for the kids, baseball caps for Michael and me, emergency stuffed animal just in case. My family was staying at the Lux Estancia La Jolla, a hacienda-style hotel and spa with sun-drenched amenities for a reunion with Mom's family. Saturday night's festivities were going to be at my cousin's, 5 o'clock cocktails, barbecue to follow. I sent Michael and the kids ahead to retrieve the car from the valet while I leisurely packed the ever-important contingency bag. As I tucked in a second set of undies for Max, I marveled at how complete I felt. It's a rare thing when I allow myself to bask in the glow of a profoundly contented moment. And so, looking forward to the evening's merriment, arriving fashionably 15 minutes late, of course, I allowed it. I basked. I leisurely sauntered my way to the front of the hotel. That's when I saw my husband, Michael, quickly approaching with a tempest brewing across his forehead. Even before he spoke, I knew I was going to be waylaid by a buzz-killing something that he had interpreted as a calamity. I braced myself for the inevitable. Through clenched teeth, he commandeered, "We're going to the hospital now." Finding my least challenging NPR voice, I inquired, "Really? Why?" Michael hissed, "Your son, without exception, Sebastian, becomes solely mine when travesty occurs, just ate a poisonous flower." I immediately doubted this fact. Sebastian is more of a flower sucker, not a flower eater, and I take full responsibility for this. One day, he and I came across a clump of honeysuckle in the neighborhood, and I showed him how to suck out its nectar. He became obsessed and started sucking out every single flora that had a trumpet. Michael and I have been quick to reprimand these moments, telling him, "Do not suck on flowers unless an adult tells you it's okay. Some of them may be poisonous." I was to find out some of them actually are. Let's take a step back. I placated, trying to infuse logic into my husband's narrative. How do you know the flower is poisonous? Before answering, Michael proffered a double side-eye, incredulous that I didn't jump at once into his pool of panic. He reluctantly tamped down his disquiet, however, and enunciated, "The valet told me." This brought up a whole new slew of questions. Is the valet a botanist on the side? A florist? An Agatha Christie enthusiast? Besides, it seemed a stretch that the hotel valet would know the random flower my son was sucking at the precise moment he brought the car around happened to be poisonous. I had to ground myself with even a wisp of logic. Okay, what kind of flower was it? The valet wasn't sure. I'm asking too much of him. So I decided to ask a similar question. Michael, where is the valet now? No one seems to know. By his tone, I could tell my husband thought his unsatisfactory answer was entirely satisfactory. So I took a moment to examine the presented facts. The valet, with unique ability for labeling botanicals poisonous without knowing what they're called, has himself mysteriously disappeared, and on that sketchy information, my husband demands that we go to the hospital. This actually tracks. For Michael, the hospital is a place to reclaim sanity. In the beginning of our relationship, there were episodes where my husband thought he was having a stroke, a heart attack, Bell's palsy. He insisted we go to the emergency room where we'd sit for hours, finally seen by a medical professional who would give my husband a clean bill of health, and wonders never cease, all of Michael's symptoms would disappear. To be fair, we hadn't gone on one of those sanity-seeking forays since we've adopted. Now his hyper-concerns are all about the children, like when Sebastian licked the canister of scrubbing bubbles. Michael was all set to zip him to Glendale Memorial, but I get eerily calm in those moments. No, let's call poison control. And you know what? There is a poison control. In a proficient manner, poison control told me what symptoms to look for, which Sebastian in the end did not have. He was fine. Sanity restored. So, with the poison flower situation, I once again needed my good buddies at Poison Control to tell my husband with professional authority that everything was going to be hunky-dory and we could continue to the barbecue. I made my way to the front desk. The hotel manager, who seemed to be expecting me, not only gave me Poison Control's phone number, but also a perforated page with pertinent points about the pernicious progeny was glued to partaken. It's cup of gold vine in English, in Spanish, copa de oro, and in Latin, salandra maxima, which sounds like a contestant on RuPaul's Drag Race. This poisonous golden bloom hails from Mexico and grows in long decorative vines. The Estancia La Jolla has an abundance of salandra maxima clinging to its many splendid porticos within easy reach for little boys to pluck and suck. I called poison control, and they explained that toxins from plant life get in the bloodstream quickly and symptoms are immediate. I relayed that Sebastian's eyes were not dilated and his behavior was not erratic, any more so than usual. So it was their humble opinion that going to the hospital would be an overreaction. I asked that they repeat the information and handed the phone to Michael. After he hung up, my husband was still a little shaky, but agreed we could continue to our planned soiree. I could practically hear the syncopated cha-cha of ice cubes against the martini shaker. Before we got to the car, however, the hotel's head of security admonished, "You can't go anywhere." I called the paramedics, and sure enough, I could hear sirens. I asked the boy, "What did you say your name was?" "Bobby Lionberger," he announced. "I live over here." He gestured through the gate to a well-manicured seafoam green house behind him. "Let's play," he gushed as he came crashing onto my property. Everything was happening too fast. I didn't know the rules for inviting people over. "We can play on the swing," my raucous neighbor enthused. I was still getting my bearings on the new house, but I was pretty sure there was no swing. "I don't think we have one." "Sure you do. Come on," said the boy. I was beginning to realize that this kid with the name Bobby Lionberger was as unpredictable as an untamed stallion, something I learned about from an episode of Lassie. He circled the sticker hedge, continuing in my counterclockwise direction. "Don't be scared," Bobby Lionberger cajoled. "I used to play with the Andrinis. They were the family who lived here before you." I had never heard about the Andrinis. Then he told me they had a girl 2 years older than me. Her name was Tia. I couldn't be sure if Bobby Lionberger wasn't making it up. The name Tia Andrini sounded too magical to be real. Then he stopped and looked at me in a way that let me know he was about to say something serious. "A year ago, I saw your house on fire. This is getting to be too much. First he tells me there's a swing set. Then he says he knows a girl with the unlikely name of Tia Andrini. And lastly, my house is on fire. Hold on," I demanded. "I don't think you should go any further." The valet team frantically cleared the drive circle in front of the hotel. Paramedics swooped in and took my son. Michael followed behind, nodding like a bobblehead doll. I fell back and called my mom. If you knew Sally Foster, you'd understand. Our lateness was no longer fashionable, and I figured telling her about our poisonous flower/ambulance escapade would both legitimize our family's tardiness and give her a whopper of a story. She summed up the call not by asking if Sebastian was all right, but by commiserating, "It's just too bad you're missing cocktail hour." I found that oddly supportive. After hanging up, I went to the ambulance where my son was already strapped to a gurney. His shirt was off and he had 2 patches stuck on his chest. I asked a paramedic with slight peach fuzz and excessively bushy eyebrows what the plan was. He took me in with a questioning tilt of his head, making him resemble a schnauzer in perpetual surprise. And he informed me of getting him ready for transport. "No," I scolded. "He's not going anywhere." "Exactly who are you?" demanded the paramedic. I paused here. "One of the parents." "What do you mean?" he asked. I thought I had chosen my words carefully. "I'm the father" isn't accurate because there are 2 fathers, and in 2008, I'm one of the fathers, still created a knot of confusion. So I'm one of the parents, seemed the least hunky of my options, yet eyebrows was still clearly lost. All I could think to do was to say the information once again, but slower. "I am one of the parents." Paramedic Schnauzer knitted his shaggy eyebrows together, making me look even more befuddled. "So are there a group of you?" he asked. I must have scowled at his query because he went from obtuse to pissy. Hey, I'm just trying to figure out if there's a group of parents here watching a group of children. At this point, I deduced a dollop of idiocy. So I moved on to confer with the more seasoned of the paramedics, this one looking much less dopey canine and more grizzled, paunchy Ewan McGregor. Surprisingly, he backed Poison Control's belief that Sebastian was just fine. But then he patronizingly added, I still think we should take him to the hospital. It's better to err on the side of caution, especially when it comes to children. What are you inferring, I demanded? That I am a neglectful parent if I decline your services? I could feel myself slipping. Look, I called Poison Control. You have assured me I refuse for you to label me as irresponsible. Now we're missing cocktail hour, so give me the fucking release. After we got to the party, I watched Sebastian joyfully play with his cousins as if nothing had happened, wishing I lived years as he did. The stranglehold I had on our red solo cup filled with an untouched, haphazardly made martini, however, indicated the contented moment I was basking in earlier had completely dissipated. It's okay. Take a breath. Everyone is fine. Good. Now take a sip. Watery, tepid, thoroughly unsatisfying. Bobby Lionberger did not heed my words. He kept circling the backside of the sticker hedge, the part that didn't face the house. Then he turned and walked into it. I couldn't believe my eyes. A rounded entry had been cut into the porcelain carpet wall. How have I never seen this before? Come on, Bobby Lionberger yelled. I gingerly poked my head through the nettlesome entrance, making sure no part of my being touched the spiky briars. It was then I realized the sticker hedge was actually a sticker donut that contained a modest-sized play area covered in tan bark, and at its center was a rusted-out candy cane-painted swing set with 2 swings. We started swinging side by side. I wasn't very good, so my new friend taught me if I leaned back when I stuck my legs out, I would go even higher. In no time, I was soaring. Bobby Lionberger taught me other things that day as well. For instance, he told me the little blue flowers that grew plentifully on our property were called periwinkle myrtle, which made both of us crack up every time we said it out loud. He also taught me if I plucked the flower out of its stem and sucked it slow, I would get a delightfully sugary on my tongue. After he left, I lay on the grass of my new backyard, profoundly contented. I looked up at the clouds and thought, one day I will be a big boy, and I will teach someone how to swing on a swing and suck the sweet nectar. Wow.
God bless Bobby Lionberger. That's for him. And now please welcome. Okay, I'll turn this back to the stage. I feel like you've been away for a bit, but he's back. He's back.
Better than ever.
Better than ever. Welcome back.
Please, I hope I don't hit this thing.
No.
I almost tripped on it. I wanted my feet. Okay.
Clarksville City, hot and smelly, 1976. An average boy, he dreams to find his way out of the mix of Confederate flags and wallet chains and tobacco chewing fools. He wants to be exceptional, but doesn't have the tools. He doesn't have a mentor son to help him navigate those pesky feelings popping up like fear, doubt, and self-hate. Conflicts to be avoided. His confidence sucks shit. On reflection, it's kind of funny if you're not the one living it. In high school, he dreams of becoming a champion wrestler, going to college on a wrestling scholarship, then making it to the Olympics. He sees himself becoming a famous actor someday, or a journalist. Maybe the next Ed Bradley working on 60 Minutes. A paramedic, a radio DJ, a cartoonist, a Pulitzer Prize winning novelist, a senator, governor, a spy for the CIA. He fantasizes being multilingual. He wants to do important things, live in exotic locales, make tons of money. He wants affirmation that his dreams can be achieved, and he wants out of this awful southern town. The boy works towards making his dream come true. He's elected president of the student council, takes a Spanish class, makes the wrestling team, joins the school newspaper, and starts a radio club that broadcasts over the school public address system. Then problems arise. He fails his algebra class. He fails his Spanish class. He loses some wrestling matches. He has conflicts with members of the student council. And because he doesn't have someone he trusts to help him navigate with his difficulties, teach him study skills, talk with him about facing fear, his self-doubt spreads like a cancer. His senior year, he quits the newspaper, quits the radio club, quits student government, quits in his last wrestling match of his career. His grades are good enough to be accepted at the University of Tennessee. He'll start over. College will be better than high school. The young man enters college. It's a huge place, overwhelming. If the young man thought he'd have a better time in high school than in high school, he's quickly proven wrong. The classes are more difficult. His study skills are still lousy. Although the young man gets a tutor, he still struggles with the material. He failed from classes before he had his time at university. Even in classes he normally enjoy and do well in, like history and English. He joins clubs in college, and the results repeat themselves as in high school. The difficulties, the failures, the low self-esteem. Dark thoughts now occupy the young man's mind. He doesn't want to be school. He's not going back to Clarksville. It's 1903, and no one's thinking about therapy. The only classes he does and always do well in are the acting classes. He was a journalism major, acting, performance classes geared to help a reporter work on camera. The young man finds he has an affinity for acting. He has a huge imagination. He takes all the acting classes that are available to him, and he gets A's in all. He did some plays in high school, but the thought of being a professional actor scared him. It's a tough business, and he didn't see a lot of actors that look like him. Sidney Poitier and James Earl Jones. That guy who starred in Room 222, what's his name? Link from the Mod Squad. No, the voice in the young man's head told him to major in something that's safe, that you know you can get a job in after graduation. Be a TV newsman. The voice tells him to play it safe, but another voice is telling him to do what he loves. The young man remains a journalism major, but joins the theater club and does little productions when he can. Then the theater department at his university advertises in the school newspaper for a production of Dreamers. It's a major production, and they are advertising because two of the lead roles call for African American men, and there aren't any African American male theater majors in the department. The young man auditions, and he's cast as one of the leads. The play goes up, and Streamers is a hit. The play has great reviews, and it sells out its run. The young man is elated, and the success of the play confirms in his mind that he is going to become an actor. He knows he needs training, so the young man looks for graduate school, conservatory training. One day, while reading a copy of Ebony magazine, he sees a story about the Yale School of Drama. The dean of the school and the artistic director of the Yale Repertory Theater is a Black man named Lloyd Richards. The young man has never heard of Lloyd Richards, but as he reads the article, he learns that the man directed the original production of Raisin in the Sun, Broadway. And that production starred Sidney Poitier. The young man also learns in the article that the Yale School of Drama did for Meryl Streep, as did Paul Newman, and Keach, and Sigourney Weaver, and Henry Winkler, and Christopher DeLay. And the article also said that the Yale School of Drama is the finest acting school in the country. And in the middle of that magazine is a photo of a short, kindly faced, brown-skinned man standing in front of a brick church that had been converted into a theater. So, standing in front of that university library with Ebony magazine in hand, this young man decides he's going to apply to Yale. He sends for the application, learns that he has to prepare a classical monologue and a contemporary monologue, and goes to New Haven, Connecticut to audition. He does this audition. He goes back to Tennessee and breathlessly awaits word. He's looking forward to studying with Lloyd. A month later, he gets a letter back from the school. He's not accepted. The young man is crushed. He knew the chances of being admitted were slim, but it didn't make it less. He knows he wants to be an actor, and he still needs training, regardless of where it comes from. So for a year, he works at Taco Bell while he's touring the Southeast with a traveling theater company. The following year, he auditions for a professional theater company in Knoxville. He takes taught by professional members of that company and acts in the shows running for that season. In the shows, the young man, he either as an old man, usually serving as comic relief, or in the case of Charlotte's Web, a gander. The young man is frustrated. Audition season rolls around for actor training programs, and the young man still has a dream of getting into acting school. He becomes friends with one of the company members, Stitch, and confides to Stitch about his failed audition at Yale. The young man tells Stitch that maybe he should audition for another program. Stitch tells the young man not to give up the dream of going to Yale, and he wants to help work with his father. The young man takes Stitch. No one had ever offered to help him with his monologue, and the two rehearse for over a month. And the time for the Yale audition draws near. Stitch gives him the money for an airline. The young man flies to New York. He takes the train. He feels purposeful, and it's all about business. He does his audition. He takes the train back to and flies back to 2 months later, 1987, the young man leaves his apartment on his way to an afternoon rehearsal. Stops by the mailbox. He sees the postman leaving. He opens the lid and sees a single envelope. He takes the envelope. It's from Yale University and addressed Yale class. The envelope is thin. I opened the letter, glanced down to the middle of the page. Dear Yale, we are pleased to inform you. Will never cease. Carsville City, hot and smelly, 1976. An average boy, he dreams to find his way out of the mix of Confederate flags and wallet chains and tobacco chewing fools. He wants to be the exceptional.
Yeah. Troy, is there another one? Yeah, there's. It's a different.
Yeah. Spoken, Lloyd gives me a congratulations letter after this.
Oh, sweet. That's sweet. First Bud Lineberger, now. Stitch. How did it Stitch? Yeah. It's still in your life, honestly. Christopher is going to come down and play some music for us now, right? In the meantime, I wanted to ask those people, first of all, thank you again for coming out on Super Bowl Sunday, and for anyone watching our live stream or who sees this recording later, we are a nonprofit organization. This is one of our programs. Donations and grants and help support. So if you can, please click on the button and send us some dough. Fans, as we see around. And pay your support, whatever you can send to support, we appreciate. And for everyone here, you get wine and cookies. Yeah.
That's story.
And stories.
And
Do you want to do
music.
this?
I don't have that day.
That sheep's
Oh, okay, that's what I was
Chiefs.
saying. Chiefs won, and I'm gonna tell you.
Less seconds over.
Yeah.
Easy.
Well, congratulations.
Right.
Yes. Well, we're all.
Even though it's all a conspiracy.
Yeah, it's all Christopher
Stories, true stories, and made up stories. One that's never seen. So I am working on a song. I was inspired, I'm very inspired by this room. I am inspired by Gordon. There is a mention to a Gordon in this song, but it's not Gordon. But we did have all these Gordons in our lives, we discovered. And so mine is about two other Gordons, one of whom may be a cat and one of whom may be a poet. Working on is inspired by poet and cat. But the poet, who was also a singer, named Gordon, decided kind of later in his life that he wanted to write songs for people that were very and ended up with a record of 23, which I think is really cool. So I decided that I was going to start with something that's very important to me, who is not one of the Gordons in the song, but is Theodore, and he is my son, who just 12. Okay, so this is Keith. Listen. My phone's blowing up. Patrick Mahomes. Because I got the anthem one. Even though I don't really care about football. But if you're not a sports fan and you want to relate to your kids, you get the apps because they can do all the updates. Look really cool. You're like, no, I we're Gordon go. He's in the snow. Your face, my face. I think you know. You got this thing. It pulls me in. Your face, my face. I can't DJ. I was good. Yeah, you wanted it. I said you said your turn me back. This is you wanted.
That was awesome. I was really transported again. What was that one last time?
Thank you.
It feels like
Where'd you go?
me. I don't know where that song went. That was good, wasn't it? I love that. Lucky guy, right? All right. Keanu's here. Keanu joined us recently. He in November, right? Was the first time?
I think so. Like,
Yeah.
first time.
Yeah, well, everybody welcome Keanu. Gonna keep coming back.
Hello, my name's Keanu. Yes, I was named after Keanu Reeves because my mom made choices. So ironically, my story also is about a guy named Gordon. So it's neither a cat nor a poet, but he is a Marine, and I'm a Marine. So I served active duty in the Marines from 2013 to 2018. Joined right out of high school because I had bad grades and even worse judgment. So the Marine Corps picked me up faster than admin picks up. At the time, I figured my only options were to join the Marines or be homeless. Getting to boot camp, I realized homelessness probably would have been more comfortable. In boot camp, we slept in these books called racks. Like I got the top rack, and this guy below me named Gordon at the bottom rack. And now, so Gordon was from Shepherd, Texas. He was the goofiest motherfucker. First off, he was missing his two front teeth. So when he laughed, he smiled. He looked like a big old jack-o'-lantern. Secondly, he had severe undiagnosed ADHD. He would rock back and forth constantly. Even at night, you could feel the whole rack. He was kind of walking back and forth. And thirdly, he would fart all the fucking time. That boy's insides rotted. Something crawled up and that man died. But me and Gordon, we were tight. We understood right from the beginning. In the mornings at boot camp, you have like 2 minutes to completely make and put together the racks and the bed sheets. So Gordon and I had a system down. I would jump down his rack, rip the sheets off, and he would yank it down. I would throw it at him, like yank it down, like tuck it. And then at that time, I would like flap the sheet to make it straight. And then once we got those like perfect 45-degree angles, I would hop up to my bunk and he would throw the pillows up and I catch it and like put it in the pillowcase. And he would come and throw me the sheet and like we copy the thing and then we like stand back and formation and we were just tight. And Yeah, we were like this useless rat making machines. 2 minutes, very great skill. My parents were proud. And every day for 3 months, we made the rack exact same. Graduating, Gordon got sent to artillery, and I got assigned the MOS 0231 intelligence specialist. Which is bullshit for 2 reasons, because that's not the MOS I signed up for, and 2, there's no such thing as an intelligence thing. Case in point, later on after that, Gordon and I went to continue some MCT training. And MCT, it's more combat oriented. So we got to learn things like shooting rifles, gun range, and throwing a grenade. And that was a particularly memorable experience because Gordon and I were the first to go. And very logically, when they teach you how to throw a grenade, they don't just give you a live grenade to a 19-year-old and say, all right, throw it that way. So they gave us a rock and they teach us how to throw into a room to clear. So how the process works, there's a squad of 2 or 4 people. So Gordon in front, me in second, and I'm like covering. Gordon's in front, pulls out the grenade, and he shows it to me. And then he sees it. I'm like, yeah, that's a grenade. Cool. And then he takes it, and then he pulls the pin, and he's supposed to throw it in, and then you go into the room. What actually happens is he takes the rock, he shows it to me. I'm like, yeah, that's a rock. So then he takes it, and he throws it, but it bounces up the door frame and rolls back up the feet. And so then we just kind of look down at it, and we're like, fuck. And then the joint was like, what the fuck was that? And so we had to go back and do it again. So Gordon and I made a lot of fun memories. All jokes aside, I think a lot about what it all meant. All the work that I did, training and the places that I went to. Going into the Marine Corps was this long, grueling journey from boot camp to MCT to the schoolhouse and finally hitting the fleet. The whole way, you know, throughout the whole process, the older Marines are telling you about honor, courage, and commitment, and gung-ho, and hoorah. But when you get out, it's sign here, take this class, and then one day you're just driving off base for the last time. With all your shit crammed back. It was just to the next obstacle of finding, you know, going to school, finding work, and paying rent. And it's weird because I feel like I never finished what I was supposed to finish in the Marine Corps. For most of my time as a junior Marine, I felt like all the training and all the exercises and all the stupid like classes and things were going to surmount to something that was going to have to do some glorious moment of valor. But looking back, all of it really was just like cleaning shit and getting rained on and cracking jokes the whole way. My dad says the Marine Corps taught me discipline. Yeah, you should have seen the discipline I had knocking back shots at people off base. So every Veterans Day, I feel a little uneasy, very hungover. Marine Corps birthday, well, the previous day, but mostly uneasy, kind of hollow. For the first year and a half of getting out of the Marine, I kind of just existed aimless because I didn't have my moment of glory I've been striving for. I was, you know, overweight because I stopped exercising as much, but I kept eating like on the Marine Corps. Felt gross. I was living the civilian life, but I still had the inner Marine and me screaming at me about, you know, height and weight. Really kind of dragged on me and brought me really low for the longest time. But one night when that, you know, spicy sadness got a little too strong for even binge drinking to handle, I called up Gordon at 3 a.m. He answered, and we just kind of picked it up right where we left off. It had been about maybe 5 years since I last talked to him. In that time, he had gotten married, kids. He had to go back home to Shepherd. He got himself new teeth, and he was working on becoming a manager at a video game store where he worked at. And for the most part, he was happy. And that's what stuck with me. I don't know if our time in service is supposed to really mean one thing, but I think for most of us, it doesn't end with a moment of valor or some sort of climactic end like a movie. We're supposed to just move forward and carry what we can from our time in service. Even if most people don't understand why we're starting college so late, or why Memorial Day is a big deal for us. We can still find a little slice of happiness. Digesting this prompt that Lizzie gave us, at first I thought, wonders never cease. Well, of course they cease. Life isn't great continuously. But really thinking about my time in the Marine Corps, and thinking about like the happy moments and the low moments, I realized like, no, it's not that life that wonders never cease. It's that wonders never cease happening. There's gonna be lows and it's gonna happen, but there will always be wonders. Shoot it forward and find it. Why can't I? Thank you.
I always want to mention, I keep thinking that you've been here before, but you participated in one of our Warrior Board projects. Hecuba. If you go to our ESTLA website, you can hunt around and you'll find the LA projects, or you can go to the laprojects.org and you can see the programming that we created with Warrior Bards and also Wellness Works Glendale, which is working just through that group. It's a lot of veterans telling stories that we've been engaged in, and I could not be prouder. So thanks for joining the regulars. And now we have an actual board. Gordon Henderson, everybody.
There it is. Partly inspired by this picture, I moved to New York on a cold, gray January morning. There were snow flurries. I had $76 on me. Abira Ali remembers this figure differently. She says it was $34. I feel like that's kind of an exaggeration. Any amount under 50 sounds irresponsible. So we don't agree on the figure. But the one thing on which we can agree is how I spent the money. I bought film for my spy camera. As an artist, I felt I had a responsibility to document my surroundings and report back on their psychic condition to whoever would listen. In my first 9 months as a New Yorker, I took 144 rolls of film with my spy camera. The undeveloped film filled the drawers of the dresser we later painted to look like a nuclear disaster. In that first 9 months, I landed and quit or was bounced from a series of jobs, including this brand bookstore for 2 or 3 days, a film lab for part of the night, and Barbie magazine. I made it to the end of the day at Barbie. I was told my services would not be needed the following day. I went home, ate 2 mangoes for dinner, and broke out in hives. Skin rash notwithstanding, in the world of work, I was out of my element. I was also out of college and in a relationship that I wanted to work. So to make that happen, I would need to become someone who was capable of working. I had held quite a few jobs previously, including at a law firm in San Francisco, where I worked a mere 16 hours a week, but through a clerical error, which I tried in vain to point out, I was paid as if I were full-time. I worked there for 3 years, most of which I was on break. At this time, even though I had come from a city, I was kind of a rube, a bumpkin. I found the size and scope of New York City to be both overwhelming and enthralling. I waded in, spy camera in hand. Perhaps to distract me from my spy camera obsession, Abira Ali gave me a crow quill pen and a bottle of black drawing ink. It was yet another means with which to embrace the inky darkness of Manhattan. I also kept the odd diary. This time, I'm going to invite my daughter, Eliza B., to come up and read a brief diary entry. We need to have a detached voice that isn't saying what has to be said here. Come on.
I went to Newark Airport to meet my friend. It's quite a long trek to get there. The plane came in, but only a handful of people got off and were here. I went to the payphone and called her brother's house and found out that she'd gone to another airport with LaGuardia. They forgot to tell me. I felt genuinely angry. I was going to punch a sign with teddy bears on it, but didn't for fear of going to jail.
Neither Nabira nor I can recall any of that incident. What we both remember is getting new shoes. Nabira got 2 pairs of wonderful clown shoes. She had work and money and could afford beautiful shoes. I was unemployed and got basic black men's work shoes. You can see we were not on equal footing. I hated those shoes, and yet I had them for years. I couldn't. Finally, I did the next best thing. I had a shoemaker put massive platform heels on them. That was not a great idea. Unlike most platform shoes, they had no panache. It was worth it. But I have had reason to throw them away. Despite the footwear drama and the low self-esteem that accompanies unemployment, I did occasionally find time for shenanigans. I went to the Bronx Zoo with our friend Sandy, Sandman, and her boyfriend Tom. I was impressed by the giraffes. At one point, Sandy went off to get ice cream or used the restroom, and Tom suddenly became boneless. He stumbled around for a moment or two and then fell over. By the time Sandy got back, he was back on his feet again. When later I mentioned this to Sandy that Tom had fallen over, she said, "He does that." Tom was a dedicated artist, filmmaker. He was making a stop-motion animation using organic matter in his bedroom, sleeping under his film set. Here he is naked, walking into a waterfall. Here's another picture of him naked. Tom works with a man named Richard, selling rock, high-end crystals and such to the wealthy. He lived in a building in Inwood that was crawling with deep thinkers, filmmakers, writers, an auto upholsterer, and a handful of nocturnal emitters. All these people seemed to have jobs or somehow got by. One of Tom's neighbors was a dreamy, waif-like misfit named Mark Ferrier. We had things in common and became fast friends. With Brussels sprouts. I was duly impressed to learn that even Mark had a job, looking for a man named Dick Buck at the Performing Arts Library at Lincoln Center. On a lovely afternoon shortly thereafter, Mark called me to inform me that one of his colleagues had either died or retired. I actually think it was both. And would I like to come in for an interview? I would. And so at the appointed date and time, I showed up wearing a shirt that had been made out of a curtain. But it's a curtain shirt. I looked good, but not nearly as good or as distinguished as Dick Buck, who had on a heavily flared blue 70s suit. Both his hair and beard were dyed an unimposing shade of purple. He was a scholar, a valued administrator, and a man who deeply loved theater. I lacked those credentials, but I did have a flair for drama. I was in the right place. The interview Dick, or rather Richard, did most of the talking. Desperate to make a good impression, I told him that I'd worked in the art library at college. He chuckled. As he talked, I looked around at the decor in his office. It was crammed with theater memorabilia and photos. There was one of him partying with Liza Minnelli, and a headshot of the occult film star Harry Reams. It was signed, "Dick, thanks for everything, Harry Reams." At one point, Dick picked up the phone and called downtown. He said, "We have someone, and I think he's going to work out." Thus began my life in the adult workplace as an administrative assistant. I would soon have the means to pay off my debts, process a mountain of undeveloped spy film. I don't think I ever shot another picture with a spy camera. I didn't need to. I now had a job. I had moved on. One of the first things I did at my job was write a crime novel called Carcass. It was really more of It certainly wasn't crying. The inside of it, it was heavily redacted. We do what we're good at. It was the late 1980s. Office work involved typewriters, telephones, and filing cabinets. Computers would change that in just a matter of months, if not hours. I spent the waning moments of the analog office era at my typewriter, writing harassing letters, which I compiled in book form, or on the phone, making prank phone calls. In the Manhattan phone book, there were 3 Gordon Hendersons listed. I called them all and left a message for each one saying, "Hi, this is Gordon Henderson, and I need you to call me back at this number." Then I would leave the number of one of the other Gordon Hendersons. Dick Buck was right. It did work out. Here's where wonders never cease. I was a pretty good administrative assistant. I got promoted and moved downstairs to become the public programs assistant. Ended up staying for 7 years. I would have stayed longer, but Abira Ali, who has a 6th sense, thought we should move to California. This is a drawing. It's either Abira did the whole thing, or I might have contributed.
You did some of it.
I think I did some of it.
Definitely.
That proves it. And it's us moving to California. There's the plane, and Abira on the right, and me on the left, and our cat. We left New York on a day that looked pretty much like the day I arrived. It was gray and there were snow flurries. Unlike the day of my arrival, I had more than $76 in my pocket. Due to our low rent and Abira Ali's career as a toy designer and illustrator, we had many thousands of dollars, more money than I had ever seen before or since. Of course, we squandered all of it and more in our first year in Los Angeles. And this is Abira Ali's depiction of photograph view of Los Angeles. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Was Gordon of Gordon. Well, last but not least, Nick,
What?
do you want to come up and tell a story?
Yeah.
Oh. Here, I can spot you.
I know.
Yeah.
I also spilled beer under my seat, so I peed on the floor, which is
Yeah.
sort of
All right, Nick Owen, everybody.
right. It's right. Isn't it? In 1991, after a year of cancer, I went into submission. No, I went into remission. Jesus Christ, this is not going to be easy, is it? I'll get this higher. I'll make it easy. A friend of mine called Rick Bedell, I asked him if he'd help me add this experience of cancer to a one-man show that I was putting together about coming to this country as half of an English comedy team. And so we worked together, and the show sort of worked because I had these funny experiences of these 2 naive Brits trying to make Americans laugh and failing, mixed in with the vicissitudes of having cancer. And then I go into remission. It's got a happy ending. Right? So we like the show. A week before we were to open, my doctor told me that my cancer had come back and that I needed a bone marrow bone marrow, what's it called? Transplant. Yeah. In his words, that's your only real option. Oh. So I changed the ending, and a guy saw the show, and he was in charge of comedy development for Fox Television. His name, naturally, was Stu Smiley. And he liked the show, I guess. But afterwards, he suggested to Rick and I that maybe we could come up with a sitcom based on some of the ideas in this show. Well, we're not idiots. That's television. That's real money. So 2 weeks later, we're in Stu Smiley's office pitching him a show, which I really liked. It was about a desperately unhappy man. Hates his job, he's separated from his wife, doesn't get on with his kids. Then he gets cancer, and everything changes around for the better. And I thought, that's a neat idea, an upbeat show with this dark underbelly. And we called it The Terminal Man with a Good Attitude Show. Stu Smiley, I mean, we're pitching this show, and he's going through television. Oh, this is cutting edge. At the end of the thing, you only have one note. Does the guy have to have cancer? No. Yes, that's the whole fucking premise. I mean, what do you want? Prickly heat? He said it would make it hard for him to sell. I explained that was his problem, and I went back to I began my autologous bone marrow transplant. An autologous bone marrow transplant means that they take your bone marrow, extract it, they clean it up a bit, they freeze it, and then they give you mammoth amounts of chemotherapy, and that's followed by 3 days of total body radiation. Think of sitting in a microwave while it's running, right? And at that point, you have no immune system left at all. I mean, only a pulse identifies human being. Sneezes on you, it's an eulogy, right? And at that point, they reintroduce those cleansed bone marrow cells in the form of a blood transfusion. And the cells go whizzing through your body back into your bones and grow an entirely new immune system. Hopefully. Now, the first part of this procedure is called the bone marrow harvest. The word harvest is a medical euphemism that allows able-bodied men to take needles the size of meat thermometers and thrust them into your lower back 125 times so that they can suck out a liter of your bone marrow. Right? Now, I had already gone through like 3 months of chemo in order to get back into remission. So it's like December the 23rd, and I'm lying in a hospital bed waiting for the harvest to begin. And the phone goes, and it's my partner, Rick. And he says, listen, Fox Television has given us the go-ahead. They've commissioned us to write the pilot script for the Terminal Man with a Good Attitude. They want it by the middle of January. And I explained that in a couple of weeks I'm going in for the transplant, but if he comes in, we'll start working, the day after Christmas, and we'll get as much of it written as we can. And I go in for the harvest. And the next day, I creep out of there because it really leaves you feeling like being kicked in the rat by a mule. And unfortunately, my temperature goes from normal to 104.6. So instead of going home, I am thrown into the ER of St. Vincent's Hospital, which is filled with nurses and doctors all in Father Christmas hats and antlers and red noses, and they have to get my temperature, breathing down. And this they do by filling up rubber gloves with ice and water, tying them off, and then placing them all around my armpits and all around my groin. It looks as though I'm being molested by Mickey. And they managed to get the temperature down a couple of degrees. And then, of course, they throw me in the hospital because, I've got an infection. And therefore, they have to postpone the transplant. So I'm stuck in hospital for Christmas Day, which truly gives the depressing word a new meaning. And the day after Christmas, my friend Rick arrives and says, listen, we have to get a storyline. Okay, by Fox Television. So we bang up a storyline and we send it off, we fax it to Puerto Vallarta in Mexico, where Stu Smiley is on comedy vacation. And he faxes back an okay, and we then get to work. And I'm kind of amazed because every day Rick comes to the hospital, I unplug the phone, I sit up in bed, and I'm connected to all these IVs and machines. And the hospital really affords this great honor. I mean, so this is a teaching hospital. You never just get one doctor. You get the main doctor, and he's surrounded by this sort of gaggle of satellite doctors in training. And they would come to the door of my room, and then they see us at work. They go, "Oh no, it's all right. No, you're working. We'll be back later." And we go, "No, help! I'm dying." They were way more impressed by the fact that we were writing a television show. The possibility they could save my life. And in the 2 and a bit weeks to get out of substances, Rick and I wrote the entire script for the television. Attitude show. And what's more, we did this in a room 12 by 16, whose only decoration was a crucifix. And you know how hard it is to get a laugh out of him. Anyhow, even though I'm out of hospital, they insist that I take antibiotics for 4 weeks. I just understand. They got to make sure all the infection is left. Great! 4 weeks are up. The cancer comes back. So now I have to go back onto chemo, and I'm caught in this medical catch-22. And it was not until the end of March that they eventually cleared me for the bone marrow transplant. If you like throwing up, you love a bone. They put you in this pressurized room, so all the air goes out. And they sew 2 white tubes into you. One goes in here, one goes in here, and they both have all sorts of ports in which they can put all the drugs and everything they need to get you through this process. And begin obviously by giving you a lot of chemo. I had as much chemo in 2 days as I had taken in the previous 2 years. And I started to throw up. And I didn't stop 35 days. And I lost 28 pounds. And towards the end of it, I had no immune system. Even doing my head made me wretch, and you have hope, you have optimism, but it goes away. You lose it. And at one point, I'm lying there on this bed, and I'm just naked, and blotched, bloated from the radiation. I have no hair anywhere on my body. And the very thing that sustained me for the previous 2 years, my spirit, just abandoned me. And I longed for death. I longed for death to end this misery. And the phone went, and it was Rick. He said, "I have bad news." Really? You do? Yeah, it turns out that Fox Television decided that they were not going to make The Eternal Man with a Good Attitude show. And the reason they gave us was that they couldn't bring themselves to make a show that had cancer. Wait a minute, that's what they thought. They paid money for that. I was in a hospital writing that thing for those bastards. And I just decided against death in favor of revenge. Stopped throwing up. I started eating. Blood count started. A week and a half. Out of hospital. Who knew? Revenge. The great healer.
everybody. Keanu, Nick, Hutch, Gordon, the one and only Gordon, and Raphael, and Troy, and Christopher Riley. Awesome. Oh, so next month here, February 24th to March 24th, is going to be Winterfest here. So scheduling conflict. We will be back in April. We're taking 1 month off. But there will be, check your social media pages. We're going to start to put out some of the recordings that we've been working on over the years. They're getting all edited and put together very soon. And that's all I have to say, I think. So see you in April. And the theme then will be At Last. At Last. Thank you. Thank you. Take care. One day. I know better. You can meet this guy. Yeah.